This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland went to the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network, without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, folks, there are so few things these days that live up to the billing. There are so few regular NBA matchups, regular season NBA matchups, that are as anticipated as this one. But Cavs Thunder on Wednesday night lived up to the billing. We got one of the best regular season games that I can remember. And my favorite part about it, the Cleveland Cavaliers won. My favorite part of this post game, getting to talk to my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Whoa, brother. I wanted it too much, and I got what I wanted.
It was a beautiful thing.
That was an amazing game, man. I'm on cloud nine. It was, you go through that first quarter and it's choppy, and the Cavs, I think, had like a 92 offensive rating in the first quarter, and you go, oh man, is OKC gonna be the one? Are they gonna finally be the defense that proves that, this Cavs offense isn't as good as we think it is? Do we think that's possible? Then the Cavs go out and score 78 points combined in the second and third quarter. And end up putting 129 on. An amazing win, an amazing showcase for the league. I thought the league really sold this game. I was pretty geeked about the degree to which the league, ESPN, everyone seemed to agree that this was an important game, a game worth celebrating and getting everyone excited for. And then, I think the teams themselves gave us that same level of seriousness. It felt like a playoff game from the first tip, it was just it was an amazing showcase for the league, let alone the Cavaliers.
I think it was a put your money where your mouth is kind of game because as much as we sometimes complain that ESPN and other league partners they don't put value on the regular season, they don't showcase the smaller markets. They You have larger markets get national TV games regardless of how good they are or whatever the case may be. There's a good number of analysts that have said we have to talk about these teams. We need to, showcase teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And they put their money where their mouth was. They understood how important this matchup was, how significant these teams have been this season, how significant their production has been. I'm saying too many times because I'm just like, I'm losing my damn mind here. But on the last podcast, we talked about how this Thunder team has an argument to be the best Oklahoma City Thunder team that we've seen, despite the fact it doesn't have a Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook or James Harden. The Cleveland Cavaliers, it's harder to make that argument just because we do have a title team. We had the best player in NBA history on our roster, but this has been the best Cavs regular season team that we've seen to this point. It is incredibly exciting to see how they have stepped up to this moment, and the players understanding that and competing as hard as they did on both sides. I think that really, really matters, right? You need that buy-in. You need, if you're going to change how people perceive their regular season, you need the players to understand and feel the same way about the All-Star game mattering or, these kinds of matchups mattering. It's really, really, really damn important. And I thought we got a great game between two of the best teams in the league, the two best teams in the league.
I was about to say, I think you can say of the.
I'm couching too much stuff. I hate it. I'm catching myself as I'm saying it.
Well, let me uncouch. I was talking to our dear friend David Zavak before this game, and I said, he was kind of talking about, are people too keyed in on this game? Are they too keyed up for it? Is it going to be too, are we putting more importance on it than you should? And there's certainly an argument to be made, right? That it is. It is still a January game. There's a lot of season left, blah, 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 blah. But what I said to David was, I feel like this game is going to be the difference between me saying that the Cavs, because on this podcast I've said that the Cavs are title contenders, but it's been a logical case. It's been a case made by numbers, by by the kind of it's that's all right brain stuff, or left
You've
brain.
caught the from me.
I know.
I'm noticing it a lot.
I know. That's all the logical center of my brain. What I thought tonight would probably do if they won would be that I would go from saying that they were a title contender to really feeling it. And I really do believe that this team should have title aspirations. It went from all head to all heart, really quickly. Like, it's been a full takeover. And what a testament to this Cavs season that we're 36 games into the year and we're like, yep, we're here.
Yeah, they have passed every test that they've faced so far this year, right? You have the game in Boston where, no Kristaps Porzingis playing in that one. Darius has his worst shooting game of the season by far. And it's a 3-point loss. They still found a way to hang around in that game where things weren't going well. You host Boston, you take care of business against them. You get that win. Really significant game. You host the Golden State Warriors. At the time, they were playing great basketball and were the second best defense in the league. You hang a ton of points on them, franchise records. You play the Oklahoma City Thunder now, best defense in the league. Arguably
Old Boston
one of the best
to 92 like 3 days ago.
Right. They clamp Boston, clamp New York. And in a game where Donovan Mitchell goes 3 of 16, you still put up 129. Things don't go well at the start of the game, and you still find ways to score. This is such a proof of concept game. And I think one of the most important places to start at when we get to this game is the impact of the bigs. I saw this stat. I didn't have the chance to independently verify it, but it spiritually feels true. And, I don't think the internet would ever lie to me.
No.
Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are the first big man duo to each have 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists in a game since Tim Duncan and David Robinson in 1998. Carter, let me just say, one topic we haven't really talked about a ton on this podcast because it's been working, but was a really large narrative coming into this year is, are you going to close with 2 bigs? Can you play with 2 bigs against the best teams in the league? Are you sacrificing too much offensively with 2 bigs on the floor? Against the best defense in the NBA, when things weren't working offensively for your most dynamic offensive player, they pivoted to running offense through the big men. They attacked OKC on the interior, and it wasn't just when Jalen Williams was in there at center, J Will, not J Dub. They were doing it still, even when Isaiah Hartenstein was there. They were attacking the rim. They were initiating with their bigs, and they were trusting both Evan Mobley and Jared Allen to handle the blitz that OKC was throwing at them and making the right play. And I felt like a lot of their best offensive actions were involving those guys both as scorers and playmakers.
So the Cavs offense comes out of that New York series 2 years ago and says, we got to be better against the drop. When teams are playing the drop and the pick and roll, we have to kill them. So they've spent the last 2 seasons getting devastatingly good against the drop to the point where no one wants to play it against them anymore. So you go up against OKC and they know that the drop is death every time Hartenstein gets in pick and roll because the Cavs are too good in that middle space in terms of kind of drawing attention, guys lurking along the dunker spot. So they bring Hartenstein up to the level. What do? The Cavs are able to slip the screen every time, leak into open space, and make great plays on the short roll over and over and over again. Jared Allen had 0 turnovers. After Evan Mobley had 2 early turnovers, he finishes with 3. He only had 1 turnover the last 40 minutes of the game.
Mm-hmm.
They had no answers for this Cavs team when those bigs caught the ball in the short roll. And when you say big man playmaking, sometimes I think people think that means either straight up post ups or doing catching the ball at the elbow and holding it while a set is run and, playing out of the triple threat. Sometimes big man playmaking is I got the ball with space and I need to be trusted not to make the wrong decision. I need to make the right call. I need to force the action and I need to make things really, really hard. And I just felt like this was going to be the hardest team to do that against, because of how active their hands are, because of how well they fly around. Again, this is the best defense in the league by a country mile. And the confidence and calmness that those guys caught the ball in the short roll. Again, going back to that New York series, and boy, did it feel good to see these bigs cook Isaiah Hartenstein over and over again after
I'm very happy you brought that up.
After he was a thorn in their side. I thought he actually was better than Mitchell Robinson in that series 2 years ago, and really gave these guys problems with his strength, size, physicality, touch, and they just didn't get panicked. They didn't get sped up. They were in total command every single possession. And because of that, they were spraying out to the corners for three. They were finding each other cutting baseline. They were attacking isolations unbalanced, without overcommitting, without trying to be overly physical. I mean, Jared Allen is catching the ball, hitting J-Dub and spinning up for a layup. Like, these are guys get ripped when they try to do that against this Thunder team because bigs don't have the kind of skill that these Cavs bigs have, and they get ripped. They don't have, or they speed themselves up trying to score. It just didn't happen. I thought this was maybe the best offensive game the double bigs have ever played in their career.
I totally agree.
Given the circumstances, certainly.
The stage, the combined statistics, the how necessary it was for them to do all this. Like, it's one thing to do it against the Charlotte Hornets if you had both of them put up a stat line like this. It's another thing to do it when it was needed. When in a game where I don't think there was ever a lead larger than 7, was there? Like, no. It was always
maybe
within
the Cavs went up 8 at one point. I don't think so, though.
It was always the end result was within question. When you have a game that's played between two teams this good, if you played that game over 100 times, it's probably like a 60-40 split, right? And a lot of my takeaways from this game would have been the same even if the result was a loss, because I really do feel like this was a proof of concept game. I think it was the strongest signal we have yet that this offense is legitimate, that they were able to weather the storm of Donovan Mitchell not playing well, that they were able to play through the bigs in the way that they were. And I think it's fair to note, Chet Holmgren isn't in this game. Chet is one of the best defensive players in the league. He completely would change the dynamic of this game. But I feel like even though he would make the offensive approach more difficult, I do feel, especially if he's playing at the 4 next to Hartenstein, I feel like that makes them a little easier to defend, right? There are additions and subtractions that you make with every single lineup individually. He obviously makes them a better team. There's no denying that. But I do feel like the Cavs can take a lot of confidence from this matchup. And the Thunder playing a more conventional style, playing a style very similar to the Cleveland Cavaliers, I think that changes that dynamic. Does Shade then have to guard Garland a whole lot more? The possessions that he had a real tough time staying in front of him.
It's not just a plus.
It's right. There are strengths and minuses with every single lineup. And one of the things we've talked about is those trade-offs that the Cavs do even throughout the game as they stagger the pairings. OKC is going to have that same luxury with 2 elite defensive bigs, but that there is a feeling out process with that. So I think this is absolutely the biggest, strongest signal that we have that this offense is legitimate. This offense is adaptable. And I think that's one of the biggest things because they changed their approach on the fly, both offensively and defensively throughout the game. And I think it really speaks to the level of communication and understanding of what their responsibilities are on both ends of the court.
Dude, we had Andrew Schlecht on to preview this game, and I kind of asked him, or I kind of talked about the fact that both of these teams just haven't had that identity break yet. Like, OKC, even when they've lost, it's just been because their offense short-circuited. this is one of the first losses of the year for OKC where they couldn't impact the game defensively. The Cavs finished with a 127.7 offensive rating. Their offensive rating got better this year, or after this game. And against a team that is, that's what, 19 or no, it's like 24 points higher than a standard game. It's not like the Cavs shot the absolute cover off the ball or anything like that. I just feel like they just ran their stuff. They have so many ways to kill you, and I think that's part of what makes this team so special is even these great teams helmed by great offensive engines, whether it's Dallas, whether it's Denver, etc., they have one kind of focal point with which, the world orbits around.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that focal point is disrupted in any way, it just gets messy real fast.
Yeah.
And I just feel like none of these other great teams can have their best player go 3 of 16 from the field and muster a better than your already league leading offensive rating against the best defensive team in the league. Just no one else can do this. And I feel like this Cavs team demonstrated just how special they are with that kind of offensive performance.
And it's the way you have to play, right? If you don't have that surefire, nobody debates top 5 player, you have to be able to play like this. And I think...
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned proof of concept. And what a proof of concept this game is. It's also a counterfactual to this team goes 18-2 in February last year. Mm-hmm. They are, missing Darius and
Mobley for half of it, yeah.
And Evan for half of that. And a lot of people's takeaway is that the Cavs need to get less complicated and more streamlined. They need
more heliocentric.
Yeah, they need to focus on winning in this more narrow and easier to solve way. And I'm saying easier to solve for the Cavs. Like, you don't have to think as hard playing the way that they played without Darius or Evan.
No.
And both of us felt really, really strongly that even if that served the short term, it wasn't going to serve the long term. And is this game not proof of that? That's why you stay interesting and talented and weird?
I mean, you're not going to get better in the NBA by giving up talent to become less talented but more conventional. And honestly, I think heliocentric basketball, let's play with one guy that handles the ball, let's play with 3 shooters and one person setting screens. That isn't even conventional anymore. That's not the way the NBA's been trending. That is not the takeaway from how the Golden State Warriors won and how, some of the best offenses of the last couple of years have played. That is a reductive version of basketball that the Houston Rockets attempted and didn't win with. That's how the Oklahoma City Thunder played after Kevin Durant left and Russell Westbrook was playing. I've always joked that it's martyr ball, but I've just never felt that it was a winning formula when the games really mattered. And I think the most important takeaway, one of my biggest takeaways from this game, is this is exactly why Donovan Mitchell took the step back that he did, because he understood what they did last year wasn't going to result in ultimately winning a championship. He was phenomenal. He locked in on the defensive end. His playmaking was the best we've ever seen. He was scoring at a great rate, but he understood to get over the hump, I need to empower Darius Garland. I need to empower Evan Mobley. There was a great interview. I believe Joe Varden had it, where he had the quote from Mitchell, where one of the first things he said to Kenny is, "I need to take a step back. You don't understand how good Evan is. Let's empower him." This doesn't happen. The Cavs don't get this good if Donovan Mitchell isn't that level of self-aware. And you would have games last year, even in the playoffs, where Mitchell has a tough shooting game and people say, this is where Darius Garland and Evan Mobley need to step up. This is where you need those guys to play better than they did. You don't do that by having them play as, supporting characters for 82 games and the playoffs. The only way that occurs is if they are empowered throughout the regular season, if they are empowered for an entire year, if you are working on this against the best teams in the league. To ask guys to simply just step up when your star player isn't playing well is not the formula to make that occur. And I think on a night where Mitchell struggled so much offensively, where he has had so many issues in the past, when you look over the last 5 years of how he has shot with Lou Dort on him, I think he really does need to get a lot of credit for the self-awareness and laying the foundation so that on a night when you're playing the best defense in the league and your best scorer doesn't have it, you can still put up 129.
Yeah, man. And I was also thinking about the fact that you look at last year's Orlando series, Darius is having a nightmare time. He's having, just a nightmare year. And I go back to that moment where Darius misses the three in the corner. The offensive rebound comes out. Donovan kicks it right back to him, and he hits it. And Donovan just embraces him full court, at mid-court. And it's this big moment where it's like, "Hey, you're that guy. I trust you. I have faith in you, and I'm gonna trust you to hit that shot 100 times out of 100." And then you look at a game like tonight, where Donovan's having an absolute nightmare, and who does Darius find on the wing for one of those dagger threes? Donovan, and Darius is hyping Donovan up. And it's just like, it's cool to kind of see trust repaid, and see the way that these two kind of lift each other up, the way that we're seeing Evan and Jarrett lift each other up. I mean, how many places do these guys, how many times in NBA history does a team with that kind of like duplicativeness at the big and the guard level, do those guys get played off each other to the point where they don't like each other by the end, where they don't trust each other because they start to kind of view the other as a threat to who they are. And that's so not what these guys have done. They've gone through the bumps and have come out tighter on the other side, where they really do trust each other. And they really do lift each other up in like a way that is more than just lip service. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it shows the maturity of this group. I think this is the type of stuff that I love. This is the version of basketball that I grew up watching, man. Like, where teams grow internally. They don't try to just fix any issue they have with a transaction. They problem solve on the go. Darius post-game said one of the biggest changes that they have this year is their ability to have hard conversations with one another in game. Said even tonight, we had to call out mistakes that we had to one another offensively and defensively. We hold each other accountable. And just the level of sacrifice, right? Like, I do think that they have 4 guys that are playing at an all-star caliber level that deserve to have their names called out in San Francisco. I think these guys are putting up all-star caliber seasons, but they understand that sacrificing some of their individual stats, sacrificing some of those numbers, and really approaching this from a team standpoint is how they're going to get the ultimate success. That's how they're going to give themselves the best chance to win a championship. And I think when you are an all-star caliber player, that's not always a given. You feel like, and as you said, I think that was a really smart point about how there is some duplicative skill sets. Allowing someone else to do something that's a strength of yours, that takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of guts. Just because you can do everything yourself doesn't mean you need to, which is why tools like Zoom AI Companion are so helpful, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion.
Justin, can I just shout out the YouTube chatters? We got 475 people in the live stream. We were dabbling with 500 almost.
Awesome.
People are. This town knows ball, man. I think I saw Gab Gowdy tweet out the ticket seat map, and like it was like every seat was like 200% more expensive than you would expect. It's like, yeah, because Cavs fans know ball. They know a game that actually matters. So it was really, really cool. It's cool to see everyone hanging on the live with us, and it is also cool to see a great Cavs Cavs crowd that was making it hard for Mike Breen to even hear when the refs were blowing their whistles.
Yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal. I like I said, if you played this game over 100 times, you're going to get a different result almost every time because these are two really, really good teams. And I was thinking in that first quarter, this is exactly the kind of thing that can happen to you at a playoff series. You play a really good team that has an elite skill set. They make you uncomfortable. A couple things don't go your way. There were a couple travel or potential travels. I didn't get to see a replay. They almost never showed them on the broadcast, but moments where they felt that there was a travel and it led to a three, or Shea standing outside, standing on the baseline and that led to a three. Those are the type of moments in a really tight game. It really hurts, but we've seen this team lose its composure at those moments in the past. It handled every single one of those tough breaks and responded. Ethical hoops, man. They went out and even when things didn't go their way, they found a way to execute in those moments. That's exactly what you're going to need to do in a playoff series. You might have, it's very, very possible, you're playing game one in Cleveland against the Boston Celtics or Oklahoma City Thunder. Those teams are more than capable of coming out, punching you in the mouth, and taking home court in game one. That can absolutely happen. And that's why I'm so interested to see the adjustments OKC makes on Thursday next week and how the Cavs are prepared for those, because it's as close as you're going to get to kind of a simulated playoff environment, because I think whether they're playing the Oklahoma City Thunder, which would be amazing because that means you're playing in the finals, or you're playing in the Boston Celtics, even if you have home court in both of those series, I feel you're going to have to win a game on the road, because when you talk about elite teams, when you talk about teams that are as historically good as the Thunder, Cavs, and Celtics, which don't get it twisted, man. That's tier one. That is tier one in the NBA. I heard someone put the Cavs a half tier below. No,
not anymore.
Yeah, say it with your chest, man. Like, come on, we're here. We are absolutely here. We are contenders. But when you are contenders and you are contenders of this caliber, those teams win games on the road, and the Cavs are going to have to be ready for something to not go right, for games to not go their way, and for them to have to respond. I'm so encouraged with how they handle the pressure of this moment. I'm just so proud to be a fan of this group.
Well, you need to be able to count on you need to be able to count on something going wrong. You need to be able to be flexible. You also need guys to step up, and you need to have a deep roster of dudes who you can kind of pull from, and in hopes that you get two or three of them really playing good basketball. And boy, did that happen for the Cavs today. I mean, Dean goes 4 or 5 from the field, scores 11 points, defends his ass off, guarding Shea, who is the toughest perimeter cover in the league right now. And I really liked his little tip in on the. I think that's one of the first lobs he's gotten where I think Jared was almost like, "Wait, Evan's not down there? All right, Dean, let's see what you can do." Dean plays great
after that poster dunk, which gave us one of the best Jimmy Longo photos of the year of Evan going, "What?"
Amazing. So Dean shows up. Max plays his best game of the season. Goes 5 of 6 from 3, and is really, really tough. The playmaking really strong. A couple pretty ambitious passes there, Max. But overall, against a team that you really just need as much playmaking as you can find, like them being able to go to that 2-man game with Evan and Max was a real reliable button to press, which I think is really important, by the way, because we've talked about the idea of Max Evan being 2-man game being a really cool thing for them to get Darius and Donovan off ball, to get the offense more diverse. But if it's a nice thing against the Charlotte Hornets, but it doesn't work against the Oklahoma City Thunder, well, then I don't really care that much about it. But so the fact that that they were able to go to those kind of actions, those kind of plays, and like repetitively have those plays yield fruit for them, like that is really, really important for this offensive ceiling being as high as we think it is, even against the toughest teams in the league.
I think it's so important from a predictability of your offense standpoint too. When you are really committing to, okay, we got Lou Dort, one of the best point of attack defenders in the league, just Absolutely. Like all the praise he gets, he deserves it. He is that good defensively. When you have him on Donovan Mitchell, when Darius has been cooking us, and we're really going to dedicate a lot of attention to trying to clamp him down. We have a big, long, strong defender on Casey Wallace on him, and you're dedicating so much energy defensively to where those guards are, where they're moving around off ball, to be able to have a bread and butter play that doesn't involve either of those guards. That is so damn difficult to defend. And not only is that difficult to defend, if you are dedicating that much energy to guarding the guards and you have Evan Mobley and Max Strus effectively running plays that are generating open shots and have the defense scrambling, know what else that does? That puts you in a compromised position for someone like Jared Allen to come in and get an offensive rebound if there happens to be one. It is so difficult when you have that defense in that level of scramble where they are not able to, bring help defense. And if they do bring help defense, they have surrendered an offensive rebound. Like, that is so significant. And for Jared to go out there and get 8 offensive rebounds against, his playoff nemesis in Isaiah Hartenstein, just completely going at him. The up and under moves, the composure that he had, like the 6 assists and no turnovers, great to bring that up. But even just if you looked at the scoring, if you took all the passes out of that and you just looked at the scoring, he was so composed. And I thought it was super interesting after the game where they interviewed Allen and he said the game's really slowing down for him. He is seeing both ends, offensively and defensively, better than he has in the past. He understands what teams are running on both ends. He understands his role within the offense and where guys are going to be, and okay, the defense is starting to show this, so I'm going to find this guy here. That's a level of maturity, and I think it goes back to what we talked about in the past, where because he was such a finished product when he got to the Cavs, because he was already one of the best pick and roll big men in the league, one of the best rim protectors, one of the best screen setters, like he had such a refined skill set already. We just kind of write these guys off as, okay, they're finished products. They are what they are. But the miles, the maturity, the understanding of seeing game footage and reaching your physical maturity as you get to 26 years old, it takes your game to another level. We got to stop acting like 23, 24-year-olds are finished products, man.
It's just a misunderstanding of how basketball works. If I can be kind of glib, because I think so much of what a lot of NBA fans think of development is your like attribute points in 2K. Your mid-range jumper was a 77 and now it's an 81. So you have improved. And so when they see guys like Jarrett, who, you're not going to, his 3-point jumper, his 3-point shot isn't going to go from a 65 to a 75. Or it's pretty unlikely. So they think, all right, well, he's done. And that's just not how basketball works. Basketball is how you interpret the spaces between the actions, how you interpret a decoy action on the other side of the court, how you communicate to your teammates. That's why older players aren't better than younger players, because they're more skilled. Sometimes they are, but that's why you have guys with old man games that can hang as long as they can, even if they don't maybe have the athletic gifts, because they just understand the space of the shape of the game better. And I've always felt like that's really what the Cavs have needed more than anything, is physical maturity, just growing up and just understanding basketball better. Because these guys are all smart, high basketball IQ players, but there's no teacher like experience. And it's not always a given either, and you have to give credit to them for that. There are players in the league right now that are in their mid-30s that I don't think have gotten any smarter in how they process the game. That is not the case for people like Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley. All these guys are getting smarter. They're all figuring out how to contribute, how to read those liminal spaces, and that's as big of a reason as anything as to why this team is as good as they are.
And this is why you go out and get Donovan Mitchell, right? It is to put them in these situations, to put them under a microscope, understanding and having the composure, having the guts, having the balls, Carter, to weather the storm when it comes to the outside noise, right? Like, honestly, Kobe Altman should be in the running for executive of the year, even though he didn't make a move in the offseason, just because there was so much noise. Everyone was calling for them to blow this up, to not be patient, to cheat the game, to cheat the process, and say, all right, let's move the young guys. Let's get more conventional. Let's cash in your chips, whether it be Garland, whether it be Allen, whoever you were naming, to cheat the game and to find a shortcut. They had an understanding of what they brought in. They had an understanding of who the guys were in the locker room, that they were all going to be pulling in the same direction, and they had they had the fortitude to weather that storm and the belief in what this team could be. And I really do think it's a proof of concept. And I think the biggest difference when I think back to what I liked about the team in 22-23 and what I'm seeing out of this team, I like the stuff we ran in 22-23, but there were, the indications that certain matchups wasn't working out. Certain teams could make them uncomfortable. Think back to what a team like the Toronto Raptors could do to earlier versions of the Cavs, where we're going to play physical every game. We're going to challenge the ref to make a call on every single possession, because they're just not going to. Oklahoma City Thunder, they play that exact style of defense. I think it's a great strategy for their personnel, but that's the type of defense that would make them uncomfortable. But now the Cavs don't just have good primary sets, they have counters. They know what to do. The maturity, the evolution of what they do offensively, building off of that foundation, has taken them to a point where, yeah, you might be able to take us out of our bread and butter, but we've got some other side dishes we really like. We've got some things that I think you're going to have a little bit of trouble dealing with. And when you adjust to that, we go back to bread and butter.
And they believe in it all the time. I think that's the other thing, is they don't believe in it when it's convenient, and then when they get tired, when they hit a speed bump, whatever, they don't just rip up the plan and try to figure it out on their own, which is why I think this team wasn't as good in crunch time as you would have hoped. Justin, what do you think their offensive rating was in the last 5 minutes of this game?
Oh my God. 135.
144.
Oh my God. What was the offensive rating for the game again?
I want to say 127, I want to say.
I think you said 128.
It is 127.7.
Oh my God.
So they got even better over the last 5 minutes, and that wasn't even a good offensive quarter for them.
But I just want to bring up, because I think it's important. We highlighted this before the game. The Oklahoma City Thunder had the number one defense versus top 10 offenses in the league.
Not anymore.
They held those teams, probably still, because it was by such a wide margin.
Probably still.
They held those teams to an offensive rating of 108.2, which is nearly 4 points better than the second place team. The Cavs had the number one offense versus top 10 defenses this season with an offensive rating of 122, which was 5 points better than second place New York. We exceeded our best offensive rating, or our league best offensive rating against top 10 defenses by nearly 6 points. And we made their defensive rating was 20 points worse than their average against top 10 offenses this season. That is significant. That is, as I said, it's as good of an indicator as you can have, as good of a proof of concept as you can have, that the offense is capable of making it work no matter what you're throwing at the Cavs defensively. And I think that is one of the biggest differences. When people ask, why should we trust the regular season? Why should any of these games matter? It's true. You can't read into any one result. This game doesn't mean the Cavs are going to go out there and sweep the Thunder. It doesn't mean that they beat the Thunder. But when you actually pay attention to the individual matchups, when you understand the styles make fights nature of the league, especially in a league with as much parity as this season, you can learn lessons. You can get indicators. And it's not always going to be something that translates to the playoffs, but they are positive indicators that give you a better understanding.
And there are
basketball.
negative ones too. I mean, again, going back to that Knicks series, you correctly noted that every time the Cavs had played the Knicks in that regular season, the Knicks had taken them out of their offense, taken them out of what they did. And, it held true. So, if you're not able to solve problems when the lights aren't bright, you definitely aren't going to be able to solve them when they are.
Yeah.
And so, like, no, there's no guarantee, but like, I went from a game like tonight when I genuinely went from like still kind of worried the offense was going to crater to like not really worried at all. Like, I really at this point, I think you're getting in your own way if you don't think this offense is going to be reliable throughout the rest of the year, including the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think there were lessons from this game. I think when you think of the first quarter with Mobley trying to attack off the dribble, this is a matchup where I don't think you get to do that a whole lot. He got ripped in those situations a couple times. I thought it was interesting that Kenny went to his normal substitution pattern. Mitchell and Mobley check out at about the 7:30 mark of the first quarter. And after Mobley went out on that shift, he came back in, and the Cavs automatically started getting him the ball with advantage. Okay, let's try to get you into the heart of the defense on the move. Right off the bat, he gets that little curl elbow free throw line jumper. I think that is one of the most important shots for him to be able to take and make. And automatically, Hartenstein starts coming up a little bit. Mobley's moving around. He's able to catch with advantage. There's one highlight going around. I wish I had it available, where Hartenstein was on Mobley's hip. Mobley bodied him. He pushed him underneath the basket, went up two hands, and finished. That is that functional.
And those are the plays I said they shouldn't do.
No, but here's the
everything
thing.
Works, Justin.
That's a little different than him catching the ball 7 feet from the basket.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna dribble a couple times. I'm gonna hit a turnaround. That's catching it with deep position. And because I have you in deep position, I just got to give you one bump, and you can't block my shot because your hand is going into that rim. That is so great to see. And I think one of the lessons you have from this is stop trying to beat OKC off the dribble. The possessions where things bog down, where when we try to beat them off the dribble, the offense has so much more momentum when we lead with the pass. The movement and the spacing and the cutting is so strong that we just do a much better job. Even though we have talented ball handlers, we do a much better job when we are making life easier for everybody. And I think Donovan, even though the shooting didn't improve, I thought his movement and not pressing as much got better in the second half. And, you know, if we were to be in a series against Oklahoma City, I think it would probably be a very difficult series for Donovan to go through, just because of how good Lou Dort is. But I do think getting him those off-ball reps, trying to get him the ball with advantage on the move, I think things like that can help free him up and keep the Cavs in a healthy situation offensively, regardless of how he performs.
And for what it's worth, they worked really, really hard to keep Dort on Donovan. Mm-hmm. They worked unbelievably hard. That was clearly a key part of their defensive scheme in this game. Was if Donovan's out there, Dort's going to be out there. And if Dort's on Donovan, we're not switching that. He's going to fight over. We're going to make this ugly. And you know what the Cavs did? They put up a 127.7 offensive rating. So it always goes back to, what poison does the defense want to drink? Because they can say Donovan's not going to kill us, but if they're getting killed anyway, they might have to change their strategy. So, you know, it might be one of those things where maybe the first couple games in the series, Donovan's not going off. But if the Cavs offense is functioning the way it did in this game, well, then they might have changed some things up and not spend so much time worrying about that.
That's
so, like,
such a good point.
Eventually,
that's
you break.
Like, that's the nature of a playoff series, man. And the Cavs just put you in so many difficult spots defensively. And I think, again, I really do hope that a lot of people tune in for this one. I think with how hyped up it was, I feel like this is, you know, one of those games that people show up for, because this really was a terrific basketball game. I gotta say, man, like, Shea felt unstoppable. Like, he is so good offensively. Isaiah Hartenstein has really rounded out his.
Can I say on Shea, it did not feel like he had 31 on 27 shots.
He's that kind of player.
I was floored that he was that, you know, relatively inefficient compared to his standards.
It still
His
felt
impact
like
felt
impacting
painful.
the game at such a high level.
He's awesome.
He was absolutely terrific. I thought Mobley did a terrific job on him as well.
Will was just, or J Dub. I don't actually remember which one.
Yeah.
Not big man Jalen Williams. Was, I thought, phenomenal. His shot making when Shea was sitting was backbreaking. There were so many times where the Cavs wanted to pull away, and Williams just hit a 15-footer with Evan or Jared in his face. Like, it was nuts.
I was listening to Bill Simmons the other day, and he was talking about how J-Dub hasn't shown up in a lot of these marquee games. That guy's a special talent. Like, he is a special defender. I thought he was as advertised. He deserves a lot of flowers. And just his ability as an offensive playmaker, I think that is something that, that's one of those swing things that's going to take the Thunder to the other level. And I got to say, the Hartenstein floater, that is one of my favorite little plays. That is impossible to block. It is so beautiful.
I loved Hartenstein when he was a Cavalier. I was really sad to see him go. He killed us in the Knicks series. I think he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
And even in a game where I thought the Cavs really got what they wanted against him, he had 18, 11, and 8.
Yeah.
And
he's a terrific player. He is absolutely terrific.
They made the Cavs win this for sure. This game never hit double digits, and it felt like it. It felt like both teams were just throwing haymakers at each other, and no one really got to control the game for more than like a minute and a half at a time. It was just a phenomenal game, man. By the way, I do want to. We can't end the pod without talking about Ty Jerome.
Okay, I'll let you cook here because we're not ending the pod just yet. We're getting all the business out of the way. We do have to say Max Strus was phenomenal. I know you touched on him before, but for him hitting the shots, the two-handed bounce pass, brilliant vision to read it. Not the team to try it against. Nope. I appreciate it. The pass to Mobley that ended up being a turnover went through his hands.
That felt like on Evan.
That was on Evan. I thought it was a brilliant read by him, and I think that was another example of that two-man game. But Max is such a winning player, and he's the type of guy that I think the intangible stuff he does in a matchup like this against OKC is great. I thought Isaac was really good too, even though he only had 1 assist and 1 steal, and no other statistics. We won his minutes by 12, and I thought he did a terrific job on Shea. I think that was some of the best defense that we saw on him. And just great defense overall. Nice to see him out there again. Obviously, he's been off for a while. I'm hopeful that he's able to play more minutes by Thursday next week, and he's in a bit more of a groove. But please, Carter, talk about Ty Jerome because he was so much fun.
I talked about needing role players to step up and be able to throw a big punch, and it's really important that Ty, who has not been playing much, has not been getting a chance to make impact on a game-to-game basis like he was earlier in the year when the team was a bit more banged up. It's really important for this team's playoff hopes that a guy like that can come into this game and be like, I'm going to play my way and I'm going to impact the game. Like, I heard him talking in the post-game availability. He was talking about how he just felt like the team was playing timid to start the game, was not attacking, not touching the paint. And he's like, well, I'm not going to be overly respectful to this OKC defense. I'm going to see what I can do. I'm going to try to get it. I'm going to try to get into the paint. I'm going to try to make it ugly. They're going to hit me. I'm going to hit them right back. Mm-hmm. And I think that impact of the way he was playing exceeds the box score impact. I think it's a tone changer. And that's the reason I've loved Ty Jerome so much this season is he's just got this nastiness that he plays with. Even when he gets switched onto Shea and he just kind of pushes him,
Yep.
like just like a 2-hand shove. Like he's just a nasty player, man. There's a griminess to him that in his game that really suits the rest of this roster and can change the rhythm of a game when he's playing that way. So I thought he was phenomenal. I mean,
and I think that's a trait that when we look back at last offseason, I think that was something that the Cavs were trying to bring in, because Max has a lot of that grit, Ty has a lot of that grit, and George, he's going to talk some mess out there. Like he's not afraid to piss people off and to be a boisterous personality. I think in addition to the shooting that they were bringing in, I think that was one of the things that they wanted to address there. And I thought Ty at the top of the zone was great. Kenny talked post game about how they were struggling to get stops against OKC. As a coach, he just loves going to zone. He said in all his years of being a head coach, he's usually second behind Miami because no one's going to use zone more than Miami. But just as being able to throw different looks at OKC and get them out of the rhythm, we've criticized how much zone they've used at times this year, but it really made a big difference in this one. It potentially, I think you can make an argument it won the game for them, and I really like the mixing it up of, all right, after a made basket, zone. After if we get a miss, we don't score on that possession, let's stay in man, let's make sure that we're picking up our guy in transition and not allowing them those opportunities. And I think one of the key distinctions and what's important about how the Cavs play zone is it is a very aggressive zone. It's an active zone. They're not just sitting back and kind of daring teams to shoot. They're putting pressure on you. And I think when I think back to how Miami played zone, particularly those LeBron and Wade years, it was so aggressive. It felt mean. And I think even though the Cavs don't have kind of that same length to do that, they do play zone in an effective way, and the shooting numbers have normalized. We should probably mention. Yeah,
I gotta say, I before we went live, I said I really haven't loved our zone minutes this year. And it's funny, you break them out in the most important game of the season, and it's the most successful it is. And if you think about it, OKC is kind of the perfect team to do that against, especially with that starting lineup, because they don't have the Isaiah Joe or the Aaron Wiggins, who are probably the better shooters off the bench. Jalen Williams can shoot. He doesn't love to. Shea doesn't love to be a high-volume guy. Hartenstein is not a shooter. I mean, the second he took that above the break three, I was like, zone the rest of the way. Because that is an when you get a team as confident as OKC to do an out-of-character possession like that, we go, oh, yeah, I guess now's the time to do the thing I never do. It's like the old Patrick Ewing. You practice that shot, I think like I thought the personnel of good, not great shooters for that OKC starting and closing five, it just kind of felt like the right place, right time to break that out. And I don't think they generated good looks almost at all. And it's a real credit to how the Cavs swarmed, because it also, the other nice thing that it did was it allowed them to put two on the ball on Shea without getting into crazy rotations, because they just reverted to the shape of the zone. So I just overall, I thought I've not been a huge fan of the Cavs zone. I haven't really opined on it because I think it's clearly a thing they're working on. But man, what a time to break it out and have it work the best it's ever worked.
Yeah, it's... First of all, put a little respect on Isaiah Hartenstein's name from deep, because I'm pretty sure he hit like 6 or 7 threes in a G League final in a championship game to win Finals MVP. So as a basketball sicko, I've got to give him some credit there. But you're right. I think that was all a really smart point. And you want to talk about out of character? This was, I got a little bit of or all the business out of the way first, but there's no way I was going to end this podcast without talking about how good Darius Garland was in this game. I thought he was better than his stats.
Way better.
You want to talk about the possessions that Mobley and Allen got, the way they were able to get the ball with advantage and take the advantage of those opportunities. I thought Darius was the catalyst of so much of that. His scoring in the third quarter there was so timely. The 2-and-1s, getting Shea in foul trouble, just the composure that he had. Couple turnovers that you'd wish you'd have back, and I think that's just us being picky, because he's been so good. He's been at a career best assist to turnover ratio. He's been one of the best playmakers in the league. But I thought he was phenomenal tonight. And again, in a marquee game against one of the best teams in the league, he is a crucial part of those closing minutes and scoring when it matters. Scoring and playmaking when it matters. I thought Darius was awesome tonight, and I thought he held his own on defense as well. They were not able to take advantage of Darius Garland on the defensive end, and I think that's been part of the story of this year.
If you ever wonder how Steve Nash won an MVP averaging 15 points and 11 assists, like, watch a game like tonight where Darius was so in command. I don't know if those stats have updated yet, but I'll bet if you look up hockey assists, he led the team.
Those Mobley and Allen 12 assists, I bet you a lot of those came off a Garland pass.
Yeah, he was just in total command. And, like, when your big is slipping into space, the timing and the angle at which you throw that pass is really, really important. Mm-hmm. If you have to put a little too much arc on it because you're not in a good spot to hit that release valve, then the defense gets to recover and you lose the advantage you had. If you throw it too flat, you get picked off. If you don't throw it in a spot where he can catch it comfortably, then he can't take that first dribble and attack into that empty space. And I know none of this is like sexy, none of this is going to make the highlight reel, but it's part of why the Thunder could not get stops because Evan and Jarrett continued to catch the ball in stride, in rhythm. They were able to lurk along that dunker spot knowing it was going to be there. He was cooking in isolation and on switches. Just a great, great Darius game, even though the box score will never tell you that.
No, and I think anyone that was watching understood just how good it was. I looked up the NBA.com matchup data for the last 5 years. And when Donovan Mitchell is guarded by Lou Dort, at least according to those stats, caveat that, the matchup data can be funky, but he's shooting 22 of 74 with Dort guarding him the last 5 years. That's a very tough matchup. That's something you're going to have to deal with. But I think it's worth noting Darius Garland, and this isn't counting this tonight's game, but in his career against the Oklahoma City Thunder, he averages 20 points per game, 9.5 assists, and he shoots 49% from the field. It's important to have redundancies built within your offense. Spaceships aren't built without redundancies. Oh yeah, if one thing fails, we tried our best. No, if you are trying to get to the mountaintop, if you are trying to accomplish something significant, you're going to want to have redundancies on the offensive and defensive end. You don't want to have a single point of failure. You are not the Death Star here, man. You're trying to build something that can withstand things. And I think having Darius, like Shea, I think one of the things that Darius needs to get a lot of credit for this season is his ability to embrace and his willingness to embrace taking that matchup defensively. I don't think there's a lot of point guards that have as much offensive responsibility that aren't given a little bit of a break on the defensive end, that aren't, most of them are put off to the side, allowed to kind of rest up a little bit, even if they're not a weak defender. Shea's a good defender, but he's probably the weakest of their starting lineup. So let's put Case and Wallace on DG. I think having, Darius take on the challenge on both sides of the court and being able to be effective in this matchup, I wouldn't feel good about how we're playing against the Oklahoma City Thunder and how we match up against them if Donovan was the sole playmaker and we replaced Darius with a big 3-and-D wing. We would be a worse team and we would be less capable of beating this team.
Yeah. Man, what an awesome team. Darius is amazing. It's so nice to have him back because that's the player we fell in love with. And it wasn't about the 50-point games. It wasn't about it wasn't even about the volume shooting, which obviously we want, we love. It's just about his ability to command a game.
Impact.
And he's a point guard in the truest sense of the word. What a cool team, man. What an amazing season this has been. They've lost 4 games. They've won 32.
This is the most fun I've ever had, man. Like, my favorite season was the 2009 season. But here's the thing. I was playing basketball like 3 times a week and practicing on the other nights. It was my last year of high school. Like I wasn't watching the Cavs every single night like this. This is the most fun that I've had watching the Cavs in the regular season. This has been such a damn fun team. And you're right, man. Darius stepping up the way that he has. It is great to see. And I really hope people are tuning in, because Oklahoma City Thunder are a hell of a team. That is a fantastic roster that is going to absolutely contend and in all likelihood probably win a championship at some point. The Cavs, I feel the same way about them. I feel like this team's going to win a championship at some point. This is a fantastic team. And we said it with Andrew, but I think people complaining about the way that the game is played and, thinking every team plays the same style. Here's 2 teams that are playing very different styles, that are having success in very different ways, that is different than what the Boston Celtics are doing. This is an education on basketball. This is an education of why modern basketball is beautiful, the way that the Oklahoma City Thunder and Cleveland Cavaliers play. And you guys better, I know everyone tuned in on this live stream because Cavs fans know ball. I know you guys know that, but I hope the larger NBA audience and the people that tuned in for the first time, football regular season's over, I'm tuning into the Cavs tonight. I hope that they got an education of what modern basketball can and should be.
Yeah, man. You put it as well as anyone could. I won't say another word about it. This team is an amazing watch. I just want to note, they started the season 15-0. Then they lost 3 out of 5, and then they won 15 of their next 16.
Do you have the net rating, Sandy?
I don't. But my
we'll
God,
for the next podcast, let's get a few more wins, and then we'll just add it to the next podcast. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. We love you guys. You guys know ball, and the fact that you stayed up with us tonight, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasedown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of their review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.